Let's get this.
Boom!
Yeah.
Welcome to the Cougar Land podcast with Lisa Rolik. Good to see you,
Woohoo!
Lisa. Um,
Hi.
so I'm starting off with you, and now Derek, and now you.
Hmm.
Thought Derek was a good lead-in. Derek has
Absolutely.
he kind of stayed in touch with everybody. So he's been working with the Army. So you see people come in and out of bases. Like he said, he ran into Chris Cavoli, and he's got other fellow classmates like the Reeds and Art King are up in Alabama. So
Mhm.
I think a few more people, and that's the interesting thing. Like if you went with your parents, a lot of people settled. Now he just got a job there. He went to Germany. He never really was there for that reason. But there's a lot of people I think that probably live around Fort Bragg or other places like that. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it does seem like there are a lot of people in North Carolina and up and down that area. But I mean that would make sense. I know that. I mean, it's nice to have that support system of family around.
It's true. Now, something today, I was like, before I talked to Lisa, did you go to class in the snow?
I did.
Right?
In fact, I was just talking about that the other day to my husband about how we used to sell raffle tickets to all the GIs, right?
Hmm.
We'd walk up to them and say, "Hey, would you buy a raffle ticket?" And I think they were like $1 or $2 a piece.
Yeah.
And that's how we helped fundraise so that we all could participate, or those of us who wanted to and needed some help, raising funds to go on those trips. But those were a blast. I love them.
I remember taking my raffle tickets to the officers club where people were having a few drinks on payday and sold the whole thing.
Yep.
Last minute, I was not going to sell any tickets. And it's ironic because I ended up in sales, but I was not feeling it yet. But that's such a unique thing. Like you're not sitting there talking to your American friends like, oh yeah, did you ever like in fifth and sixth grade go to the mountains for 2 weeks with your friends and go skiing and do your homework in there? And in Italy, they're like, no, that sounds like some alien planet. It's hard to relate to, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, was it really costing us now? Like we had like school hours where we met after dinner and we did study work and lessons and but what a great opportunity. And since then I've always had a love of snow skiing. I love it. And we were so lucky, so fortunate to have so many opportunities to us living over there. I remember um, being in junior year of high school and really wanting to come back stateside because I'd never really lived stateside. I'd started off 0 to 5 years in Belgium. I was in kindergarten, first, second in Fort Knox, Kentucky. By the time I was in third grade, we were in Germany in Heidelberg. By the time I was in fourth grade, we were in Italy, and then Italy all the way through high school graduation for me. And those were in high school years, or when the John Hughes movies were really big, and we saw what all of our American high schoolers were doing with the shopping malls. They were driving at 16. They had thinking of Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Weird Science, and I wanted to be stateside. So at one point it was kind of like the grass is always greener. But then after coming here to the States and I went to school, University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and sharing what I did in high school, what I did in grade school and middle school. We were blessed. I'm so fortunate to have had the experiences in Italy and meeting all kinds of people. Now recently getting in touch with many of fellow Cougars, and yeah,
It's a trip, right? Because
yeah.
like you mentioned the films. Now I was talking to another guy I'll be having on here, Mike Walker, who said, "Hey, wait, Lisa's dad was my dad's boss."
Oh.
And yeah, and Mike Walker was in my grade, and
Mhm.
he was there for a few years, I believe. But I remember the Walkers, and what I loved about them is that we played basketball together in Pee Wee League, but they had the VHS machines. The dad was like, hey, we had no TV to watch. So he bought two
Right.
VHS machines, big investment back then. We're talking a video recorder was probably, I don't know, $1,500. You know, that was like a car, you know, back then. They were such big technology.
Remember those Flintstone boxes, huh? Where you had to push down really hard
Yep.
to play, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was funny. So he would always have two of them running, and they were getting all their friends sending them videos from the States. So I'd ride my bicycle. I'd get on my little Peugeot and I'd go ride 6, 7, 8 miles over to Mike's house. I think they lived over near Barrico or something. And I'd come back with like 9 or 12 movies to go watch. I'm like, this is great, because if you wanted to watch a movie, you either had the movie theater on post, which,
Right.
you know, was hit or miss. I really keep a movie running all week long. Saw that one. And even those were delayed probably by 6 months to a year at times. We
Oh
weren't
yeah,
getting it.
easily.
We weren't up to the times. For I think later they might have got that down logistically, but initially no. So then we would get movies on VHS before the movie theater. And that was crazy, because if your friends recorded something from HBO, that was usually a year after it was out. So it was weird to see that we were slightly behind the times. But this obsession for American media, and to see those kind of movies, you get hooked. And, you know, there was Italian TV. I watched that. That's how I learned to speak Italian. As I
Mhm.
said to Derek, I watched Popeye. He was initially speaking English because they didn't have dubbing yet. And then he became Braccio di Ferro, you know, arm of steel, you know. And so I'm like, oh, got to learn Italian now. So I learned
Yeah.
Italian, and they only had 3 channels. And I'm like, okay, so the good side of that is that you spent more time trying to figure out what to do to stay entertained, you know.
Right.
And what was your weekend? Oh, let's go bowling at the bowling alley. Let's go watch, you know, the 509th play a football game. Let's go. Oh, the Cougars. Oh, it was sports centric, and then it was travel.
Yeah.
So where did you live? Like, you lived off post, or did you live in Bellagio?
So we lived in Bellagio until my dad retired from the Army, and then he started working civil service right after that. So I was in ninth grade, and we were in Bellagio for that first part of that year. And then we ended up living in Castaniero, which is like 2 bridges down from Nanta, where the Spittles lived, and Christy Clegg. And so we were out that way. And yeah, it's true. It's like we had sports, and we had travel, and thank goodness for public transportation and being able to, on weekends during the summer, we'd go to the Lido and hang out. I just rode my bike an awful lot. I remember riding, it'd be nothing to get on a bike to ride 10 miles to go to a friend's house,
Right,
right?
right,
And have a driver's license.
right.
And we lived, I don't know, Castanera was at least 20, 25 minutes away from Post.
Yeah.
So, it was a good haul, and there was no easy way to get the bus there. So yeah, we were like walking, riding our bikes, asking to be dropped off on Post somewhere so we could meet up with friends. How did we get anything done without cell phones? Like, we knew, like, if we were meeting at a time, we had to be close to that time, because then we'd miss the group or whatever. And then we didn't even have answering machines at that time,
No, not all of us had telephones either,
Right.
because it was like $8 to $20 a minute to call the state
Super expensive.
and to
Yeah.
call each other. And then, since we didn't have answering machines because the Italian phones and the American technology didn't work together, some people got
Mhm.
it to work, but most of us did not. So if I
Right.
want to call my buddy, it just ring, 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 ring. He's not home. Must be
Right.
at the
And
tea
we
club.
couldn't stay on the
Right,
phones like our American fellow students over here in the United States. They could be on the phone for hours at a time.
right.
I never had that experience until after I moved to the States, where I was actually on the phone for more than an hour at a time.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes 2 or 3 hours. And you see that in the movies and television shows during that time when we were growing up, but we couldn't do that.
Yeah. The party line. Oh, because like you said, these films,
Right.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Valley Girl, Pretty in Pink, all these movies were like, wow, those kids in the States have it so good. But the truth is, what we were living, if that movie was made, I think would far surpass it in many ways. We just were not actors. We were just living. It was an AR,
Right.
as I said, actual reality. Now the
Right,
world
right,
is
right.
more virtual, right? So I think that looking at Vicenza, that experience is you had two worlds. You had the base, and then you had Italy.
Right,
So base world, Italy world. And you would, if you get tired of one, you'd go jump in another.
right.
And what I did like is that we were like an hour and a half away from skiing, an hour to a beach,
Love that.
right?
Love that.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it was longer depending. I mean, depends how fast your parents drove. My dad didn't drive very
Well, and
fast.
then, what it depended on, what ski area you wanted to go to, so we could go, I mean, I remember skiing a lot in Italy and Austria, Switzerland, Germany. We skied, we were so lucky that we were so close to so many things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, I remember when, I just graduated my youngest daughter virtually, because of
Oh,
COVID and everything. Uh,
congratulations.
but so she's 18 and getting ready to fly the nest. And I remember, when I was 18 for spring break, our senior year, Lisa Brown, Katie Sutton, and I went to Paris and Geneva and London during spring break. And we were like, our parents dropped us off at the train station. We were gone for that week. We had our hotels picked out so that our parents knew where we would be. We had some type of an itinerary scheduled so they knew what hotel we would be at if any emergency came up. And we just kind of took off and did our thing for a week. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I don't know if I would let Kat do that. I mean, the world has changed so much, and I guess they would still be safe, but I don't
Well,
know. I mean, the
after the
things.
movie Taken came out, you don't
Oh,
want your kids running to Paris because the
right,
kidnappers are waiting at the airport, you
right,
know, and that's yeah, that's great. That's a movie, of course, but still, times were a little more innocent back then. And think about what you just said. If what you're talking about is what I hear people over here, let's say a big executive, somebody that makes a significant income in the upper middle class to wealthy, that week that you had was just a thing that we could do because we lived there, because we were based there. So they're
right,
going to travel one of these days. I'm going to take the same trip Lisa took for a week, and it's going to cost them, Derek said something the other day, it's going to cost them $12,000, $20,000 to do, which for you was, okay, get on the train. Okay, that's $100. Oh,
mm-hmm,
hotels, 50, 50, 50, whatever back then, right?
right,
And you know, now we look at that, we were having a very rich experiential life. And we were
mm-hmm,
living things that other people looked upon as prestigious to us, which was normal. So
right.
I'll hear people, oh, I went and saw the chapel and la 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 in Italy. I'm like, yeah, dude. It's like I went to Venice, and then we're like, oh yeah, I've been there
Yeah,
about 82 times, and
I
yeah.
know we were like, really? We've got to go back to Rome again this year on a
Right.
sports trip, and we've got to take time so we can log in those school hours, and we've got to go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa again, and oh, we've got to go to this museum or gallery or whatever, and yeah, it's like, oh, we were just there for English class, now we've got to do it for art class, really? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, totally.
And we wanted, the irony was we were not appreciating La Dolce Vita, the slow, easy pace. It's something you get when you're older. After a busy job like you do in business, executive, and you get over and they're like, I'm sitting in the countryside. I've got some freshly
Right.
cut tomatoes and some local cheese and this food, and here are the crickets, and you're like, this is great. But you didn't get it as a kid because we were fast, 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 and we're missing out on this blah 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 that we're seeing on VHS tapes about what we're missing. And
Right.
it was nuts because I'd go back every 2 years, get a taste, like this is so cool. But it
Right.
but it really, you were thinking, oh, I'm going to get bored. I'm going to stare at the beautiful Tower of Pisa again, or I'm going to do this. So, I mean, Vicenza was such a tame place. I think that's probably why I always looked to get in trouble, because I needed to turn it up. I mean, there was not much. It was no metropolis. It's a beautiful little town, and a lot of people still live there from Vicenza, and they love it. And I get it. But I wanted to expand my horizons like you did. We're like, oh, I want to go live this thing. I want to go back. And we'd hear people come back from college and they'd tell us, you know, when they're visiting for wintertime, what we're missing out on.
Yeah.
And we get here, and, you know, some people came back to the States and they bought as much candy as they could get because they didn't have the certain candy. Like, I remember people bringing bubble yum from the States before we had it in Foodland. Like, it was a big deal. I'm like, really? I'm tasting this. It just tastes like a block of sugar. What are you talking about? I don't get I must be missing this thing that you're talking about. So those
Right.
things, right?
My thing was Vans.
Vans, the shoes?
Vans, yeah. Like I don't know if you remember the black and white checkered
I do.
Vans.
Yeah,
Okay, so I
Spicoli
wore
shoes.
those as a girl
Yeah.
when I was in my junior year of high school, and now I look around and they're back in fashion. You know, Spicoli, you could put them on the map. You know, 30
Right.
some years ago. But yeah, I mean, my thing was like Vans and Nikes and Levi's.
Yeah.
That's what I bought. Whenever we come back stateside, it was like, go to the mall, get Vans, Levi's, Nikes. And then I remember like Benetton was really, really popular even here in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a lot of Benetton clothing, and from being over, you know, in Italy. And I remember my cousins, their friends asking me, well, where'd you get that? I'm like, well, you know, we didn't see that in the Benetton store and at the mall. And I'm like, well, you know,
you're getting like the third level, the third tier, the leftovers, you're not getting the good stuff. And you would see that in the States because, like, an interesting thing, I know we're talking about shopping and trends, but this is what interested us. We were trying to keep up and be cool and imitate the movies or whatever. But you go to PX, had the greatest technology, you know, really good electronics, the top line stuff. Maybe we were importing from Japan, I don't know, but come back to the States and go to Radio Shack. I'm like, man, this stuff's like 10 years old. It's better at the PX. So that was another realization that I had. You know, the fashion and it was different trends and different things that were going on. I mean, I spent a summer in Kentucky and I'm wearing these really cool Italian sweats that were probably $250. I think they were my dad's, but they had this kangaroo on them and they were like really fancy, expensive sweats. And I'm wearing them around Kentucky. And these guys like, boy, you dress funny. They just did not, they hated me. And they're wearing tight jeans with a skull ring in the back and Panama Jack t-shirts. I'm like, what? This is cooler. It's like, and they were never going to catch up to me and I was never going to catch up to them. I realized that we lived on a different planet. I was only there for a few months, you know, at 15.
It's so true. When I first arrived in Lincoln back in 1987 at the University of Nebraska on campus, moved into my dorm room. I lived on a floor with 32 other girls and didn't have a roommate because there was no air conditioning in the residence center that I lived in. And the roommate that was assigned to me had allergies and needed to be in a more controlled environment. So she had permission to move from one residence hall to another. So I didn't have a roommate. And I remember, you know, trying to make friends with other girls on my floor. And they were like, hey, let's go out. You know, there's some frat parties we can stop by and we can go grab a bite to eat, whatever. Let's, you know, get a little bit dressed up and let's go out. And I thought, great, you know, this is a great way for me to get out and meet people. So I put on some bright orange silk pattern pajama bottom style pants. And I had on a black strapless bra and a large oversized jacket with shoulder pads because it was the 80s, right? It was shoulder pads.
Of course, shoulder pads and hair.
Yeah, I mean, big hair, did my hair big. I mean, I had slingback pumps on, black pumps, and I was styling for Vicenza, not for Lincoln, Nebraska. And I walked out of my dorm room and the girls were like, you cannot go out like that. I'm like what? And they're like, no, like you look like you are a lady of the night. Like, really, Lisa, you got to go back in and change.
You look
And
like you came from Europe with a mission. Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I got picked on too. I was wearing Timberlands then, you know, and they, you know, a lot of the girls on my floor, they just thought they were obnoxious looking, but they were, you know, it was the fashion that I understood from Italy, the fashion that I like to wear. And so I conformed. I admit it. I was weak. I conformed.
But hey, but listen, did you not notice, of course you did, that you would tell your stories, oh yeah, we're in Venice, and they go, who's this arrogant princess from Europe? Is she the ambassador's daughter? Whether it be me, was your dad, whatever, you know, my dad's a PE teacher, man. But I lived in the middle of all that is perceived to be where the style comes from, where the fancy automobiles come from,
Right.
and where only people that are very wealthy travel to at the time. The average working American wasn't going there. They weren't interested. And it's a military thing. See, you don't really you break down the numbers. If 1% of the country serves and protects the country, and this is a fraction of the 1%, and a fraction of that fraction has kids, you're like an 18th of a 1th or whatever, right? And that's not even a word. I like that, 1th. But, you know, so you're part of a fraction of a morsel of a thing. So your experience is that much more dramatic than the other 300 million Americans at the time. I don't know how many we had, 285, 300, now we're 350 million plus. But you're such a small, your experience is so different than the majority.
Right.
So you could talk to 100 kids, they go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, Billy Ray's got a big truck. You know, I like roller skating. And that would be, okay, let's expand on that. Where do you like to roller skate? Switzerland? No, I'm joking. But right, that you're like, what? So the weird thing for me is I lived there from age 5 to 19, and people would come there for 3 years. You lived there an extensive amount of time, like
yes,
longer. You lived there long enough to learn Italian.
Yes.
And
well, I did. Yeah. I mean,
right?
I don't ever get to use it, so it's very broken. But yeah, absolutely.
It's okay. Adesso parliamo italiano. No. But
okay.
yeah. And if you can't, sto dicendo qualcosa. Stiamo facendo un podcast adesso. No, but I'm just saying, like, but yeah, I did a podcast with Italians. I said, let's see if I can hang, you know. So I was doing a sports one with guys a couple weeks ago.
Very cool.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, Americans bring us podcast. I'm like, that's right. Let's see if you can hang. And they're like, and they were all into it. I'm like, you're Italians. You love to talk. That's all you do. You're professional podcasters that hang out at the coffee shop and just rock a show all day long. That's what you do. Coffee, vino, 2-3 packs of MS cigarettes, and there's a podcast.
Love it.
You know, but that I would have loved to have been able to do this from Vicenza. It would have been so cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I like this because it's your life on a base. You get to experience Europe. You make friends from all 50 states, all over the world. And there's like the order because there's the base. So it's like you're kind of military-esque. And, you know, well, there's rules on the base. You're like, oh, it's military. Okay, I get it. It's kind of funny. Like other kids were going to a high school. They didn't have to worry about some sergeant seeing them on a North 40. They probably just get ignored. You know, oh, kids are setting the hay on fire. Ah, screw them. But
well, you know, what's interesting too is that, you know, the Dodge school system, I mean, we were very fortunate to have the staff that we did in Vicenza, because I feel like, you know, when I first came to the university, one of the classes I took was like, it was basic business communications 101 or something, 120 or something like that. And I remember like almost having a panic attack on the first day of class because the professor said, I just kind of wanted to, you know, have a baseline to see where all of us land in terms of grammar. So I'm going to pass out a quiz, and just do the best that you can. It'll probably take you the full hour to do it, to answer the questions. But I just kind of want to see where everybody is, with grammar, punctuation, spelling, everything. So hate to start off the semester this way, but this is what we're going to do. And I immediately thought back to Hakeem telling my mom that she should be concerned for me as a senior having a 7th grade reading level. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bomb this quiz. I'm not going to do very well, and this is going to set the course for my college, experience. And I I was the number 2 score of the quiz by the next person down was more than 10 points below. So the top 2 of us had gotten, pretty much all of the answers correct. But it took something like that. And then as I was going through studies, I think back of how many incredible teachers we had and the curriculum that we had, and we were more than well prepared to go on to college if we wanted to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we had choices, and I, sometimes I hear people talk down about Dodd's academics, but when you look at your dad, for example, great coach, and he was my PE teacher, and I remember wanting to join the tennis team so I could travel with my boyfriend who was on the soccer team, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I was going to learn tennis. And I asked your dad, I said, would it be all right if, a couple of days during the week, instead of coming to PE class, I met Mr. Baird at the post gym to take tennis lessons? Would you approve of that? He's like, oh, he didn't even hesitate. He was like, absolutely. He was always encouraging all of us to be active and participate in sports, and and then so we have that, and then on the other side we have teachers like Mr. Chula, who was freaking awesome with chemistry, and Mr. Kleb with social studies, and so many great teachers that I look back and I'm like, gosh, we were lucky all around. We were lucky because we had options, we had opportunities, and we had experiences, and we could take those and take them where we wanted to go with them. And I just, feel good about it. I'm glad for all of that. And I have, our lives have been greatly impacted by friendships and relationships that we had in Vicenza. And really, when you think when I think about life is about relationships. That's what we're here for, right? And I can't think of a time that there wasn't some unique relationship that impacted me while I was growing up, and even today, in the past 30 years. But blah, 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 blah.
No, I'll let you go, girl. You go. I basically look at this and I go, okay, I want to understand what makes me tick, them tick, everybody tick. That school was a private school. It just was disguised as a military environment. It was high level. The teacher to student ratio was high. That's why everybody get a great education. Then you get the cultural education, the global experience, seeing all the different stuff. You went to a history class, and then you went to the building or the statue that was carved by the original artist, and or the palace or the villa or whatever. And it's 3D. It was the real thing. So everyone else is reading it on books. It's like that. It's funny. There's that book, not that book, the movie,
Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, that quote, right?
Yeah.
You see, I didn't have to say anything. We were connected, and he's like, yeah, you can tell me about the Sistine Chapel, but you've never smelled the room and been in there.
Yeah.
Right. So
how do you teach someone what salt water tastes like, and how you can taste it with the wind blowing up off the sea, right? I mean, how, and it's very true. Very true. I like the 3D. I like that. I'm going to use that.
Well, you recently went back. A lot has changed. The world has changed. Italy is not what it once was. A lot of things have not worked out for them. financially. They're very buried under taxes. You know, it's horrible, but like their deficit's really, really bad.
It
And
is.
and it's not very entrepreneurial friendly, because if you try to start a business, you're going to get taxed for everything you do. I mean, they used to tax you for owning a color television. If you were an Italian, you had to pay the TV tax. So it's like everything, like if I was, you know, a videographer there, I'd have to probably pay for my lens, and everything would have to be issued in multiple licenses. It's not like the States where you run off and you get a business license. This is where you can make your dreams happen. You can do anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, got my license, get my thing. Okay, it's the Lisa Rolik business. We're selling waffles, whatever.
Mhm.
That's how quick. Over there, it's different. So you're looking for a traditional job, either through your parents or something. You know, my dad worked at a bank. I got a job at the bank, that kind of thing. Um, it's changed. It's become a place. They've had a lot of, you know, unfortunate people come over there, refugees trying to escape the whatever hell they're in, and landing on Italy first, and it changes everything. So it wasn't the little quaint Vicenza that you remember. It's like there's more crime downtown. There's different things, right? It's not the same.
Yeah, a lot more crime. And, you know, when my husband and I were there almost 2 years ago, this coming September, we weren't welcome. I mean, we were tourists and we weren't welcome. And there were quite a few establishments that we went to. And my Italian is definitely still good enough to order and greet and whatever, you know, but they knew we were Americans. And yeah, we were treated poorly in some restaurants. And it's unfortunate, you know. I absolutely love Vicenza,
Right.
and you know, we did go to Venice, we went to Rome, went to Florence, and Venice especially is just an international city, and they need our dollars, right?
Tourist revenue, yeah.
Very, very much so. And so we were treated so well. Like people were thankful for us being there and were so kind to us. But Vicenza, I mean, we got really, really bad service. And it's just too bad. I mean, we learned of the places that we knew we could go to. And we found this one pasticceria type bar right off of the square that they were friendly to us. And so we just ended up going there, you know, mostly instead of venturing out any further, because we rented an apartment right down off of the square.
Okay.
But yeah, it really surprised me to see all the graffiti, the dirt, the pollution, a lot of homeless people that I didn't remember seeing before. And I, you know, as much as I still love Vicenza and the memories, I don't know if I'll go back to Vicenza. I know I'll go back to Italy. You know, I think the next trip that we take will probably be to Sicily or Sardinia, you know, one of the islands. But I'm not, I think I would go back to Italy just because I still love Italy. I still love Italian culture, Italian food. I love it. I love il dolce di far niente, right?
Yeah.
The sweetness of doing nothing. And I love all of that, but I'm not really pulled to go back to Vicenza again.
Yeah, my brother went there. But you see, now you're grown up and you have a car. So he's like, you're in and out of there in 10 minutes. It's small. It's like bang. And like, I thought it was, because you're small when you're a kid, you're like, the North 40 is huge. And you look at it now, you're like, yeah, it's okay. My friend.
Well, I mean, we went to the teatro. We did a tour there. We went up to Montberico. We stayed there, and then took, you know, day trips because we were like, I don't know what, 8 to 10 minute walk from the train station, the apartment that we rented.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good to use as a hub. And I really wanted to introduce Vicenza to Bob. And I'm glad that I did. You know, we rented bikes, and there's a beautiful bike trail that takes you from downtown Vicenza all the way out to Lago di Fimone. Mm-hmm. And I'm like was sharing with them, this is where we did our cross country races and, the blah, 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 blah. We went out to Castañero, saw the house that we had lived in Castañero. And so we did a lot, but I don't know. It's unfortunate, I mean, my goodness, I'm a little bit embarrassed with our president right now. Well, I understand. I know we don't need to go political or anything, but
yeah, no, this is not there. He did not live in Vicenza. Yeah, no, but I get where you're saying. You're like, well, you're in the COVID brain, man. Come on, our life is all weird. People are getting bombarded with news. That's why I'm bringing happy news that nobody can call fake news, which is the Vicenza news.
Yeah.
It's true. I will say, like, going back there, I met friends or people that came here and they go, you're in love with a memory. What you knew is no longer there. Like what we're talking about, Vicenza. Well, we are the memory. You are, I am, everybody that we know that'll be on the podcast eventually, right? It's the people that experience it. And it was that time. And that's the thing that you get to, we spend our life trying to accumulate stuff or things, but it's experiences ultimately, right?
Yeah, we don't have the same thing that a lot of people in the States have, where they can go back to their hometown over the years, or they're living near their hometown and they're running into their high school or their elementary school teachers in the grocery store. I ended up living in Kearney, Nebraska, which is my first husband's hometown. And we moved back to Kearney from Seattle, and he loved being in his hometown. And you had no anonymity at all because everybody knew you. You knew everyone, and you could go, I don't know, rent a video or go get an ice cream, and you would see a teacher or a coach or a schoolmate. And that was very common, but we've never had that. Maybe we had the opportunity to go back during a winter or summer break or any, visit during the time when some of our friends were still there or some of our friends' families were still there. So maybe we could go back and see people, maybe get on post and go by and say hi to people, at the school. But it's just, it really ended once we graduated and moved away, because it was never the same, even going back for visits, right? I don't know so much if I'm in love with the memory of Vicenza. I think that, a lot of people have fond memories of their high school years, and I think that's fantastic, but there's no way that we could ever, it's just too different. Even the school's different now. The post is different now.
Yeah, they probably don't even go off base very much. They don't really leave post. And that changes. So we were the go outside people, the experience thing. And also that you were there for a longer time, as was I. So we adapted to that community. I think people stopped going off post as much later. They're, me being there for that many years, my brother being there for that many years, there was a certain group of people, the Richies, the Millers, certain people that were around there a long time, and they integrated with the community more. And then I don't think people were there as long, because a lot of those teachers stayed their whole career. So there wasn't new teachers with new kids moving in that were having that same timeline. And then the military people would come and go unless they got like a GS job and it was a longer contract or whatever.
Right.
But I will say that experience is to understand what makes you tick. So first of all, you illustrated that the school system kind of gave you an edge. I didn't realize it gave me an edge till later. Even though I didn't pay attention much, I was around all you smart kids. So that was my normal circle, You
are very, very smart. Come on now. Look at how well you've done.
I bought the city behind me.
Well, I mean, come on now. Look at all your successes.
I try to be, I'm not trying to be bigger and better. It maybe, when I was younger, if I had an ego about it, I might have been, but not so much now. Now I could give a damn less, but when you're young, you're trying to become somebody. You don't realize that you are somebody. And then as you get older, you go from, ego to wisdom, and you let that go. So
Yeah.
when you're young, like, I'm going to be the big whatever. And then, okay, so some people think they want to be the king or the president or the queen or the executive CEO of Google or whatever. They get that gig and they go, this is hell. I have 900 phone calls today. Everybody's asking me for stuff. But my
Right.
friends
It's
from
not
high school,
always,
and my
yeah.
friends keep telling me how lucky I am. They don't know that I got no sleep last night, that I'm
Right.
always
Right.
on the call. Oh, they look at my
There's
Mercedes,
definitely a price to pay, right?
right? What's crazy is that school, what it did turn out, and Derek and I talked about this, turned out high level military people. It turned out a lot of them, a lot of good business people. A lot of people have done well. Not everybody's been as lucky. It's luck of the draw. They could have had a good run. They could have peaked in their early 20s, 30s, 40s, and then had something collapse, because that is life,
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
from watching the movies, and you talk about these movies that we watched as kids, oh, it all ends up with a happy thing. But the movie stops at about a 90-minute period, and they're like, and they just live eternally forever. No, that's when life kicks in.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Pretty in
Yeah.
Pink. Yeah, she left with the guy in the BMW and they were going to be happy. But you keep watching the movie, about a year later, he's cheating on her with a girl from the malt shop. And, c'est la vie. Here is reality, right? Reality in your face. You're like, well, the movie said. And so I'm guilty of it. I tried to live my life according to these scripts that other people imagined or wrote, and they weren't real. I mean, the California dream, I've moved here to chase whatever this dream was. And I've touched on most of those things that were out there, and they were not all that I thought they were. They were not that. And then you find yourself, as you get older, especially if you moved a lot, you have a little bit of that escapism in you because you traveled when you were young. Now, if you didn't, you might not feel that, but we feel that as military brats. We're like, well, I'm getting tired of the climate here. I'm going to move to Norway. I'm going to go to Switzerland. I'm going to go here. And the grass is always greener. But you have to take into account that reality is reality, and you are where you are in your mind. So
Right.
it's what you're making of the situation, really. Who have you kept in touch with since Vicenza?
Well, that's interesting because, well, absolutely you. Absolutely, Lynn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really did not embrace social media. And when Facebook really started getting out there with people, it was like 12, 13 years ago, where everybody had a Facebook account and you had to be on Facebook. I never had Facebook. I didn't let my daughters have Facebook. I didn't embrace it at all. I certainly didn't want my younger girls, getting on. I was hearing all kinds of horror stories about whatever. But anyway, I never did. And then I started a new job. And one of the ways that the team communicated was through Messenger on Facebook, right? And so one of the first things my boss asked me to do was create he couldn't believe I didn't have Facebook. I'm like, I don't have Facebook. I don't want to sign up on Facebook.
Right.
And he's like, well, this is how we use Messenger. So just create a Facebook account. You don't have to post anything, but just create an account so you can use Messenger, because we do group chats on Messenger. And this is how we kind of keep in contact with each other throughout the days and the weeks and whatever. And I'm like, all right. He goes, when you start working from home, because as a consultant, if you're not on a job site, you're working from home. He's like, it can be kind of a weird transition when you're used to working in an office around people, every day, 8 hours plus a day, to working, it can be isolating. And with this chatter that we do on Messenger, we don't feel quite so isolated. So I was like, all right. So I went out, I had Bob take a picture of me and got, created my Facebook account and posted. And before I knew it, I had like, and you.
Oh, yeah. I'm guilty of that. I sent everybody 200-300 friends to you, I think. Yeah.
You
I'm like,
did.
I'm gonna bombard her. Welcome to what you've been, slightly over here for.
And it was like, Lisa, where have you been for the last 20 years? And I'm like, I know. And it's not that I didn't want to be in contact with people, but I was just living my life, and I had stayed in contact with those that I had stayed in contact with. And so it was really weird to be getting these, getting the friend requests was one thing, but then having people contact me through Messenger and, then actually talking with people on the phone and whatever. It was kind of a bizarre 3 to 4 months after I got my Facebook account, because I was catching up with people that I hadn't talked to since 1987 or 1985 or whatever.
Time machine.
And yeah, just bizarre. And you blink and I'm 51.
Nah.
I mean, I'm 50. Of course I am.
It's on video now. Everybody knows. They were making different assumptions.
I am like so proud that I'm in my 50s.
Yeah, we made it.
I'm happy to be here. I feel good, and I love it. But so I'm in. Initially having that initial communication. There are a lot of people that I ended up texting with and whatever. I have remained in contact with, well, obviously you, Len.
Of course.
Even though I'm still not used to calling you Len. I always think of you as Lenny.
Lenny was too Lenny and Squiggy for me, and I'm a big bear of a guy. So Squiggy or the Lenny guy on that show, I'm like, why did you do that? And then Mice and Men, I'm like, how dare you? I've actually been to the ranch where they wrote Mice and Men, and the guy.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Things will happen when you date girls on the internet, and their parents own that ranch. But don't do that. No. Hey, I'm married now. Many moons ago, not too many, but moons ago. Yeah. But I'm like, what irony. And not only that, you want to know what's funny about that ranch? That's just a side note. It's like, it was also the Marlboro Man Ranch. So I grew up smoking Marlboros. I'm on the Marlboro Man Ranch, and I'm on the ranch where the guy wrote Mice and Men, and
very cool.
Weird guy in there. I'm like, it's weird. It's weird how that's the thing. That's the journey. Like going from Italy, watching movies, listening to certain music. Over the years, I got weird experiences. Like I'm jamming out to Motley Crue, right? When we're kids, like, oh, this is so cool. This music, these people. And to me, it was amplified. They're so amazing. They're such big musicians. Oh my gosh. I'll never meet them. They're the coolest people in the world. I'll just put this funny story on here. My buddy was friends with Tommy Lee, because my friend was from Hollywood, and he knew his hairdresser. He knew the guy's hairdresser, his barber. Anyways, he gets us backstage passes, and we're having a few drinks, and it's me and him and about 50 beautiful ladies. We're like, so what are we? Why are we here to worship Tommy Lee? Your music I was jamming in my car, driving through Italy on my moped, whatever. This was so cool. It was like the soundtrack, because music meant more when I was young. I hardly listened to it as much now that I'm older, but it had so much emotional draw. Music meant so much, just like those movies you talk about.
Yeah.
And so there's Tommy Lee, and I'm just being wild, early 40s, little midlife crisis time, having fun. I go into his trailer and find his Jaeger bomb maker, and I'm just like having shots. I think I probably had like 8 of them, and he's spinning house music. I'm like, oh, good, dancing. And I go and I start out there, and I'm dancing with all these pretty ladies, and they're having fun. And my friend's over there talking to Tommy Lee. And this is like a guy that I thought he was so cool. It's like the Elvis or the Fonzie, like somebody I put on a pedestal. It's just a guy. But when you're a kid, your perception, it's amplified. Fame, yes. All these things, right? And he asked my friend, he's like, who's that guy over there? He goes, oh, that's my friend Lenny. He goes, he's an amazing dancer. Oh, but this is the silly part, okay? Because I'm a manly man. I don't want that compliment, and I'm not offended by it or anything. I think it's hilarious because it's the irony. And then, I finish dancing with these ladies, and like, I see my buddy. I'm like, hey, we're going to take off. And I go to shake his hand. He's like, you're an amazing dancer. I go, am I going to get a job dancing with Motley Crue? That's as their dancer? No, that's not going to happen. I'm 40 something years old. But I'm just saying, you hear the music, you buy the tape at the PX, you got this album, it's your anthem, you're rocking out on your boombox, and then you meet the guy, and that's that, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's funny. I remember like music was a big part too for me when I was growing up, and we didn't have. I was just my oldest daughter asked me this the other day. She's like, "Well, what did you listen to when you were growing up? You know, because it was like classic rock and roll, or what were some of, you know, the different bands that you listened to?" And you know, when you think about it, the '80s had a lot of like flippin' awesome music, right? I mean, when you think of all that happened during the '80s for music and
MTV launched that
crazy explosion, like great music. And I said, you know, I was kind of all over the map with music, but the cool thing about growing up in Italy is, you know, I remember listening to the top 40, Casey Kasem, right? I remember Saturdays listening to that. We had 2 radio stations we could listen to that were our military broadcast stations, right?
Radio K, the Italian
Radio
one.
K, but they always interrupted their music. Their DJs would play like a segment of a song, and then they were more in love with hearing their voices on air, I think, than
Like
actually playing good music.
They should have been podcasters. Hey, it's Mario. I'm going to talk about music I could almost play, but I'm not going to let you hear it. But hang on, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to play music just in a second. Just hang on. I'm like, okay, dude.
But I remember like on sports trips, you know, like I remember a tennis trip to Rome, and I remember hearing Phil Collins, his single when he separated from Genesis, and it was Janet Alberghini had his first solo album, and you know, you have like these like, and I just saw Phil Collins for the first time in Kentucky, like I think it was in last November. Like I've always wanted to see Phil Collins. Like I don't know why. I've always wanted to.
Because you couldn't.
I couldn't. Yeah. And I mean, my first concert was Rod Stewart at the Arena in Verona, right? And I remember that, like, I mean, it was a fantastic experience. But I was all over. It was like Rod Stewart, Michael Jackson, Phil Collins, Aerosmith, Rat. I remember the first time I heard Rat, we were on a volleyball trip, and we were sharing a bus with another team. I can't remember where they were from, but somebody had put a cassette tape in to play when we were on the bus. And I was like, I've never heard this. They're awesome. Who is this? And the Rat, you know?
I met their drummer probably about 8-9 years ago at a barbecue in Hollywood, because that same guy knew all these stuntmen, and rock stars want to hang out with stuntmen. Stuntmen don't make all the money, but they have the cool job. They're the cool people in Hollywood. Right. So I met him, and he was cool to talk with. I said, yeah, I used to jam out to your music in Italy. I had no idea I'd be talking to you at a barbecue, having a beer. It was weird, you know.
30 plus years later.
That's the same thing. So I'm just saying that sometimes what you see and you project into the world manifests, and it's absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. You know, it sounds like I'm just name dropping, and I could a lot more. I've run into a lot more people, and I'm not going to for this cast because it's not about that so much, but it's weird how you go on this journey and it just boom, boom, everything connects one day. And then you're like, oh, I want to climb the top of the mountain. You get up there, you're like, oh, it's kind of chilly. You know, it might not have been, you know, what you built it up to be in your head. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't miss, like, I go to Europe. I love Spain. I could move to Spain. And
yeah, your pictures looked amazing too, the ones that you shared. Yeah.
I could live there. I'm not against Italy. I would visit Italy, you know, probably end up doing some Italian podcasting, whatever. But I want to do this for us, all of the Vicenza Cougars, because I could talk about it, but if I don't do it, if I don't implement it, I would say, let's go. Nobody's going to do it. You know, it's like a lot of business plans. Hey, man, my buddy wants to start a waffle cone business out of a van. They're like, cool. Okay. Let's not talk about that anymore. And it dies right there in the conversation. So you got to implement, and we're kind of at an age, because we did live there during a magical age. you know, if any of the younger current Vicenza Cougars are watching this, older alumni talking about it, their experience is not the same. It's a little more dangerous to go off post. The front gate
Yeah.
is not open. I mean, you're not walking up that
Well,
same gate, you know.
yeah,
Saw
that
pictures of it.
plus when we were living there, it was during the high 80s. You know, the American dollar was buying a lot of lira at the time. And
Hmm.
so, you know, we could afford to do a lot more too because our dollar was so strong. And I mean, it's, you know, I remember talking to a gentleman when I was there last in Italy. And, you know, he had overheard my husband and I talking about the changes that I had seen in Vicenza and whatever. And he wanted, you know, he was excited that he could speak English with some Americans. He was a super nice man. And he's like, you know, when you lived here, he's like, you know, the economy was very different. He said a lot of the Italian families cannot afford to even go out for pizza once a week. You know, it's just, it's become that much poorer of a country. But, you know, I think of that too, like we were getting close to 2,000 lira per dollar back in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
It was like 19 something. And, you know, we could easily afford to like skiing. We could afford to buy a day ski pass. And I remember taking the bus from Post to drive up, you know, with a bunch of GIs to go skiing on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You know, but we could afford to do things like that. And the world's different. Italy's much poorer.
Skiing is like, I don't know, like driving a Formula One car. I don't know. It's like Mark was telling me, Mark Parkins, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get a ski pass. How much? Oh, it's like $1,300 for the season. I go, $1,300? Oh my gosh, you used to be able to pay for your whole trip. That's just the pass. A day pass is $100+.
I was this close to skiing with Mark this past season. This close. I was trying my best to meet him out in Breckenridge. And we were talking and he was like, what about this week? I'm like, God, I had to go to San Diego on work that week that he ended up being in Breckenridge, but I'm hoping that next season I'll be able to ski with him again. Like I have like some of my most favorite memories are with Mark and skiing with Mark and, you know, dropping our skis from a basket lift and jumping out of the lift and snapping our skis on and making our way down the hill. You know, I mean, we had some good times. I loved skiing with Mark. But yeah, I mean, there was the Icon pass that he got.
Yeah,
he could ski in different states. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's expensive, you know, equipment is expensive. Travel is expensive. You know, it's an expensive sport.
Even if you make a good income, it still kicks you in the shins.
Yeah, it's almost better. It's almost better if you're planning it, like, because I live in Nebraska, and if you know that you're going to go skiing at least twice during the season, it's better to get a season pass because it's cheaper than buying 2 one-day passes.
Isn't that ridiculous? It is. It's insane. Well, I don't know. I don't miss it as much. I like skiing a lot. I grew up skiing a lot. Mark recently went up and skied with David Doherty, who we met for a brief time. He was there for like a year. His brother was an older guy. He was, I think, going to University of Maryland or something, playing in the Italian Football League with Bobby Davis and Derek, and they all knew each other. Derek used to hang out with them. The younger brother would hang out with me and Mark, and he kind of lived out by Mark, I think, Risignano. And yeah, it was cool for them to meet up. He didn't, you know, it's funny when I reach out to people on this. Some people are like, well, nobody remembers me. Why should I talk? It's like, what? You know, it's not like we all left there.
Well, first of all, you're like the easiest person to talk to. I mean, we've spent hours on the phone, right? So who cares? Like, I mean, I'm curious. I want to hear from other people, and you're so easy to talk to.
Thank you.
Anyone who's watching this, talk to Len. Come on.
It's easy. It's easy. I've done a lot of podcasts. You get used to your timing, and you try not to. If you start off doing them, you're like you know, okay, he's umming, but you know, I look at this whole experience and I go, okay, what was it like? Where are you? Did you grow up to be what you thought you were going to be? I felt like I was shot out of a cannon. I had no idea. I just wanted to get to California. I remember sitting around with a few guys at the end of school. And what are you going to do? I'm going to be an aircraft engineer. I'm going to work on Huey helicopters. I'm going to go to college. What about you, Len? I go, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to California. No business plan. It was funny. You know, been close to that, been off of that, been in all different directions of all that stuff. But that, in the end, the weirdest thing I'll tell you is that for the longest time, I never went back and did a mental audit to say, what is my motivation? Where is it coming from? Oh, this is some 19-year-old kid's business plan that I'm operating on. Does it suit my life now? Is it going to long term? You need 2 Cadillacs. No, who said that? And it's like, what you need, you know, wear leather pants. I'm joking, but I'm just saying that it kind of comes after you from that direction. You're like, did I check myself? Who am I trying to live up to? I thought life would be so easy and automatic. Like, oh, they left, you know, Vicenza and they went to college and they became successful and they own a house and they have a happy family. Yeah, but a lot of people have been through divorces, myself, you know, been through all this crazy stuff that we thought as kids very naively what not to look out for, what to do to make sure we make a better decision the next time. Made impulsive young decisions. And some people did well and never had a bad day in their life, but most people have had to deal with something. We weren't really thinking about the obstacles. It's like if you start a business, I'm going to start an ice cream shop on the corner. Oh, I didn't realize this is the corner where the tough gang wants half my profits. I didn't realize that nobody buys ice cream here, and now I have to pay them. I'm just like making a silly analogy, but I don't know. For you, what did you, I mean, you watched Derek's podcast. What did it make you think about when you saw him recanting some of the times?
Well, quite honestly, I just thought initially was he's still eye candy.
Of course. Of course.
He's I had the biggest crush on him. And he was such a sweet guy, you know. But I like hearing from people that have shared experiences, right? And from their perspective, because as we've discussed, it's a unique experience, and our experiences help shape who we are today. And so I just think, you know, it's really interesting. I think, you know, we're military brats, but we're also civilian brats within that military civilian subculture, right?
Right.
And it's not just like a military subculture or civilians within the military supporting the military. It's overseas, and that puts on a whole other element, because we have military brats and civil servant kids that are growing up here in the States, but it's completely different than if you're overseas for any extended period of time.
Well, they're living in the civilian community with the civilians.
Yeah.
You know,
what I like, I mean, it's just very simple, but as soon as Derek started talking about how he had lived in Heidelberg, and then how he arrived in Vicenza, and you know, just to me, it's like listening to someone from home, right? You know, and that just took me back, and it made me feel like I was with not family, but immediate friends. And Derek and I could probably cross each other on the street and pass each other and not recognize each other. I don't even think I was a blip on Derek's radar back in Vicenza, right? But just like sitting down and listening to the two of you talk, it felt like we were all friends, that these were my friends. And because we have so many similar, even with him living in Heidelberg, I lived in Heidelberg. He grew up, you know, a lot in Europe. I did too. I lived 5 years in Belgium, 2 years in Heidelberg, and the rest of the time pretty much in Italy, with, you know, 2.5 years in Fort Knox, basically.
Yeah.
The rest of it was in Europe. And I mean, that's what stands out to me. Even when I meet people today, my job, my company, there are several of us in a very small team that are military brats. And we have a lot more in common, you know, especially the military brats that grew up overseas.
Yeah.
So
You
I
do
don't know.
get
I think
some,
that's what
you
it
do
is.
get some of the military training without going through boot camp. How to adapt and overcome and adjust and meet new people out of nowhere, because you're constantly moving. Where
Yeah.
if you're just born into your little tribe, this little city, little town, you've never gone out and you've never built rapport with people from different cultures and different
Yeah.
states and different places. So it
I
does give
mean,
you that, you know.
I'm pretty much, I would self-describe as an introvert, you know.
Not
People who
today.
meet me,
Not today.
no, no,
Oh,
I'm
I
saying,
get the lure. I'm pulling it out. Yeah. Okay.
I I am, you know, being with people, being around lots of people, it like really zaps my energy.
Yeah.
And I, you know, if I have a choice of going and, you know, pre-COVID times, going out and meeting a group of people or staying home and watching a movie and, you know, with a bottle of wine and my husband, I'm going to choose the latter, right?
Hmm.
Um, I enjoy people, but it sucks the life out of me. It's a lot of effort for me to remain engaged in conversation. I don't become energized from it, right?
It feels like the
Um,
fear of Facebook is being described well. Oh, yeah, right, right.
so you know, but being a military brat and having the experiences that I've had, I've learned those social skills. I've learned how you can put me in a room full of 100 people and I know I won't drown. I know that I'll be able to work my way around the room and establish rapport with people. And I do that and I do it well. But it's not, you know, it's something that I learned
It's a
from,
tool,
you
it's a
know,
skill set, right?
absolutely. Because of living in Italy all of those years, I wasn't rotating in and out of different posts. My new friends were rotating in and out of my life,
Right.
right? So I stayed there, and unless I was, you know, and I did like Sony Adams. We were friends for many, many years. The Adams family was another family that was there for years.
That's true.
Um, so we had those friendships with people that were there for years. But a lot of my friends, you know, they would come in for a year or 2 years and their parents would be stationed elsewhere. And it was heartbreaking too.
It
You
was
know,
it was
years,
like a temp agency of friends. These are your friends. They're on contract for 24
and
months.
it was really hard
Yeah.
to stay in contact with people back then too. You know, you
They
had
would
snail
disappear.
mail.
They'd disappear. They would move to houses. You know, even when you became a civilian in the States, and I was in the service, but I don't know why I'm thinking me as us, but you come back to the States, you get American friends, you go to college, she or he gets a phone number, your friend, all of a sudden they move and they don't have the new phone number, they don't have a way to forward it to you. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't carry that around. And people would disappear. And you're
Yep,
like, they're not calling me. And they're like,
yep,
well, you're not calling me. And they would not communicate. Well, I'm not calling them until they call me. It's like, who cares? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I
What
mean, even
does that
like
matter?
when I graduated college, my then husband and we graduated from UNL. Then we went to Montpelier, Vermont for his culinary school because he wanted to get his associates in culinary arts. So we were in Montpelier, Vermont, and then we went to New York City for his first internship.
Hmm.
And then I didn't go back to Vermont with them because I love New York City. And I was like, no, I'm staying here while you go back to school for another 6 months. And you can come back and meet me in New York City for your second internship. But and then we lived there and then we moved out to Seattle and then moved from Seattle to Kearney. I mean, all of those friends that I even made along the way, we were moving like every 6 to 12 months, you know, and
Yeah.
it was hard to keep in touch. Since I got on Facebook, I've also reached out to people and like, can I find this person on Facebook? Because now that I know how, you know, it's easy to use and it's okay, I accept it, whatever, you know. But yeah, it was just a different world, you know, and technology. I think about COVID today, and I feel really, really bad for a lot of people who are suffering right now, lost their jobs and, you know, are under a lot of strain. But I'm lucky in that, I can still work with my clients and use Zoom, like we're using right now to stay in communication.
I would have
We didn't
loved
have
Zoom.
internet then.
I would have loved Zoom. Oh, my friend's gone. I want to, hey, let's see how Mike's doing. Hey, man, we're in the States, man. We're wearing these new sneakers. Damn it, we're missing out. No.
Yeah.
Look what, we're watching HBO. Yeah, aim the camera at HBO. We want to watch HBO over here in Italy.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, think about it though. Think we can do FaceTime from our phones. We can use Zoom. I mean, it's great technology that we have at our fingertips today. And yeah, absolutely. But I do remember those times. No, I remember sending out postcards. This is my new address.
Right. Do you remember probably going through times in your life up until now, because you stayed off the internet, that you totally forgot about Vicenza because you were so in where you were in life, whether it was your marriage, working on your kids, so focused on your career at the time, that whatever that was, that solo focus, that circle went from this, and you were like, huh, Vicenza. Oh, that was interesting. Yeah, I was part of that. And then people like, oh, I'll never talk to them again. And you start believing that, and all of a sudden it becomes a possibility. And I have friends that may or may not want to do this, be on this podcast, because they think they left there with some mark or bad mark or misconception. Is what people aren't realizing is that we all get older, wiser, more understanding, more empathetic. And any beef anybody had, you don't know, like I said to Derek, that kid had trouble at home and he was bringing it to school, and now you're taking it personally, or she didn't like you because you didn't know that you took her guy that she wanted to date, and that happened too. But we lived in a small pond, you know what I mean? Everything was amplified in Vicenza.
Well, and
people would take a beef like
pond.
that.
We did live in a small pond. We didn't have really good support services for dependents at the time, right? I mean, I feel that way. But I think, I think everybody has a different comfort level. And certainly had you reached out to me 10 years ago, if you said, hey, Lisa, do you want to do this 10 years ago? I probably would have been like, I don't think so. Because 10 years ago in my life, or it was probably more like 12 years ago.
Catch me in the middle of one of my divorces. I'm like, no, I'm not signing up to put that on the Sunshine Show here today, right?
It was a dark world. I mean, it really was. And, I've grown a lot in the past decade, and I'm very happy, and I love being able to talk with people from, my past lives and all of that. But yeah, I mean, I can understand if someone's going through, and we all do go through rough spots, right? I mean, it's life, and
the obstacles that were not illustrated in these fantastic movies of perfection. Obstacles, real life obstacles, like
it's life. And I feel very, I feel very fortunate that I am where I am today, and that thank goodness I have a good head on my shoulders and can make some good decisions. But yeah, I mean, today you reach out to me, I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, let's do this.
Of course. Well, we've had some great
years ago. I'll be like, no.
And I respect that. And I respect the way anybody feels. And if you catch somebody on it, we're not all on the same upcycle. Right. And that's the misconception too. You could see somebody's Facebook, oh, they're living the life of Riley. They're so happy. They're so perfect. A photograph takes...
I can't hear you. I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, so if you see somebody on Facebook, what a perfect life, oh, they're living this, and then somebody projects envy or because something's bad in their life, and they're misconceiving that a photograph takes less than a second to take. It takes milliseconds for the shutter to snap and click, and then this perfect picture. But you've only captured a millisecond of perfection. You don't know that family didn't get in the car and argue all the way home. You don't know that his wife is seeing the tennis instructor. You don't know that he is a philanderer, and you don't know that they have a drug habit, and you don't know, but man, are they selling you good? And this game of show and tell, the misconception of Facebook Like, hey man, let's just be real. Let's just be
Yeah.
people. Let's just go back
Well,
to like we all eat at Foodland, we all eat at the snack bar, we all take the Villaggio bus, we all drink beer
yeah,
behind the swimming pool, we all drink beer in the North 40. Yeah. We all go to, Nordest Disco or, the Crazy Club or whatever was going on
right,
or the Palladium. We all do it. See, there's no real above. I mean, we weren't driving cars. Few of us had cars. Some kids had a car, usually a Fiat. Dad's not going to give you the Porsche. Here's the Fiat. Take the
yeah,
utility car. You know.
right, right,
So we didn't grow up where I think the only difference in class or separation of, oh, you're wearing $50 shirts. I only have a $3 whatever polyester shirt. That might have made somebody insecure, like as far as materialism or status, right? But it's not like some of the schools over near where I live where the kids are driving Bentleys to school and, $200,000-300,000 cars because their parents want them to see who's more
right.
statistically important. I think that's a bad example because if you treat somebody like this is what you deserve, what have I done for it? Nothing. Then their expectations going forward in life, it's going to be hard. But I will say, like Facebook does throw people. It is a psychological mind bender. Oh my gosh, Sally and her family, blah blah, they look horrible. I feel better about myself. Like this weird stuff that people have this misconception. I'm like, come on, man, don't pretend to be that fake photograph and you stacked it and you put a filter on there and you know what I mean? You took off 32 pounds and now you look great. But the truth is you're angry and you're living in the forest and eating squirrels. I don't know. You know
Right.
what I mean? Right.
Yeah, I remember it was a long time ago, and I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but it was a long time ago. And one of my fellow classmates had said, "Hey, Lisa," and this is like, I don't know, 18 years ago, maybe. And she had asked me, she's like, are you showboating? Are you being honest? Or are you showboating? And I'm like, and at the time, I think I was trying to spin. I think I was so unhappy that I was trying to spin that I had a different
Reality.
perspective on my life,
Right.
right? And I wasn't ready to acknowledge that I was not happy. And it was hard. I mean, I took some big chances and made some big decisions. And I'm happy for it now, but I remember her asking me, are you being real? And lucky for her, she got it figured out when she was, in her early 30s. And it took me a while longer. It took me a long time longer to get things figured out for me. But
It's a defense mechanism. It's a defense,
yeah,
and we've all done it. I've done it. The defense
yeah,
mechanism, you overdo something to distract from what's really hurting inside or what's not working because you don't
yeah,
want to pay attention to it.
yeah,
And like Mark said to me, you overshot cool. So if you ever, people you didn't get along with, you alienated them because you
yeah,
were being too cool, man. Life
yeah,
sucked, but boy, were you pretending it wasn't. And you were
yeah.
putting 112% into that effort to put on this
I
facade. And then we don't realize we're wearing this mask. I have a
yeah,
happy face inside. You're going, oh, things are horrible. Right. And it's true. Everybody's done it because we've had our expectations twisted and beaten and thrown down the mountain many times because we hope for one thing and get another.
yeah,
Because we thought, and then you look on Facebook and your reality is, oh my gosh, Billy and Jenny, they just have it so made. And you don't know they're at home, fighting in the kitchen right now. Like they've got it figured out. I'm just here with my cat and this beer. I hate life. So they living it up. It's a comedy movie. I mean, if we could really break through the walls here, we would see that, hey, there's people here that have very high status that went to our school. You're doing very well. Other people are doing very well. They have big titles, big names, big achievements. But what do they want? If you become a general, and I'll put it out there, there's like 5 or 6 of them, and admirals,
it's amazing.
these, and you become a CEO. You
Mhm.
still want to go back to who you were before. with your friends to normal, because who you were and who you became are two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you want the comfort food of your friends and the people that understand you at the core of who you are. When you go on this trajectory and you fly out into space, like poof, look at all these medals and stuff, and then you have all these yes people around you. Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Whoever, what do you know, they're just yesing you to death. And like, these are my friends. Like, no, they're just being nice because they don't want to lose their job, or they don't want this, you know, they like that office in the corner you gave them, or whatever, and they are hoping for a raise, and secretly they hate your guts because they're looking at your Facebook page and they saw that your wife got a new car better than your husband's. Now, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm just breaking through the barriers of reality. How anybody future coming on here, like, hey man, I ain't tripping on you. You know, I know you want to be who you are as a person. You know, we talk about our common things. I've done exactly what you're talking about. And that was, you know, being honest about where we are in life and where it is. I'm sure there's people. I remember being a big businessman and all these people were around me. Were they my best friends? No, they were on for the ride. Little did I know. But I thought, see, you know, I wanted to be validated. I wanted to be right. Well, that was not what I thought it was. And the same thing happens in other cases. But I think at the core, most Vicenza people would still treat each other with respect and get along. And I think they've been through the same kind of journey.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
Launched out of the cannon into the States. Yeah, we're all gonna, and somehow I felt, I don't know if you felt this way, like we had to have this goal of hitting it big. Like we were all going for broke for something big. Not everybody, but I felt a lot of people were ambitious towards becoming a big thing. And maybe it was those movies we watched that brainwashed us. I don't know. Maybe it was the music at the time, and it's on TV, so it's possible. That was probably what it was. You know, we were going to go get what we couldn't have in Italy, in the States. We were going to go get the most of that and maximize that. But then you come here, and once that runs out, then what are you left? Who are you at the core, right? So it's like the psychological podcast. But so, but when I tell you, hey, Lisa, do you remember going to Foodland? That brings back, you know, your dad, like, hey, honey, Dad, I'm going to go there and get some popsicles because we're going to drive 8 miles to the countryside where our house is, and I want to have these American food things in our house. You remember things like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember sharing marshmallows with Italian friends who didn't have marshmallows. So I would, you know,
exotic food.
Yeah, that peanut butter. No, I remember that. I remember, you know, I love Italian food though. I would rather buy, you know, when we were there, buy Italian food over the commissary food. You know, but I remember the first time that we went out for pizza when we arrived in Italy, and it was a little pizzeria that was right off, it was in Standa, right off the post, right? And because we were living in temporary housing on post. And I remember they put the pizza,
The BOQ by the hospital over there in the corner of
yeah,
yeah,
right across the street from the hospital. Yeah.
Right.
And I remember they put the pizza down in front of me on a plate, took up the whole plate, and I looked down on it, and it wasn't Chef Boyardee pizza.
Right.
Right? Because that's the only pizza I had growing up, right? I'm in 4th grade. They put a big pizza in front of me on a plate. It's burned on some of the edges. There's hardly any cheese on it. And I just remember looking at it and crying. I was like, this isn't pizza. Now, fast forward 6 years, and we're stateside during summer vacation, and we're in Omaha, and we go to Pizza Hut, and I want pasta. I want spaghetti. And I order spaghetti, and they put down some crap in front of me, and I almost like, I didn't start crying, but I was so upset. I was like, this isn't spaghetti.
No, that's what happens, and we sound arrogant because we get used to a lifestyle. I remember, this is a like memory, Lisa Rolik. I'm probably, I don't know, 12 or so, 10, 12, 11, whatever. We were hanging out in the officers club. Our parents were at the bar. They had that TV room. And I just remember you talking to your sisters, on me and my brother or something. They're there. We're trying to watch Star Trek on that rear projection, weird ass television in there. But that was high tech. That was like, wow, because I didn't have TV at home. Didn't have SEB anyways.
Yeah.
So Star Trek. Yeah. And ordering those burgers that would sometimes be good, but usually burnt, coming right out of the bar at the officers club. Right.
I remember that.
And speaking of food, I never tried tacos till I was in the 6th grade. And it was taco night. I'm like, what the hell is this taco night now? Oh, this tastes good. I fell in love with spicy food. I hadn't had a lot at that time. So that was interesting. But as for Italian food, it was great. And my mom was like, you're getting chubby. You're eating too much candy. I go, no, I'm just chugging the carbs. It was definitely
panini,
carbs.
spaghetti, pizza.
Oh, for sure. So who have you been talking with? Any other Cougars lately? I know you've hung out with me and my brother, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk to them. I know them from the TV room at the O Club and the ski slopes, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I not regularly like ongoing, but through like Instagram or chat here or chat there. I got a messenger chat the other day from Dave Wilkerson, who I think arrived after you graduated and was there for our senior year. And he was sharing pictures that he was going through old photos. And, you know, he shared some pictures. One is with me and Jenny Rokas. And so I sent the picture to Jenny. I was like, look what Dave just sent me, you know? So, I mean, it's kind of like chatting, but not really staying in contact and having, you know what I mean? There's a difference in my book. Like I feel like I've been in really good contact with you and Mark and your brother. Last year I had a really nice long phone call with Lisa Brown. And I hope if I can ever get back down to Texas, if COVID allows, one of these times down in Texas, I'll be able to, my parents are in San Antonio, which is where Mark is, and Lisa's in Houston. And I'd very much like to try to either get Lisa up to San Antonio or go down. And I told her I would try to do it my last trip down, but I didn't have time. So I mean, it kind of you know, not really in someone's everyday life, or they're not in my everyday life, but kind of sporadically keeping in touch with people, or comments on Instagram, or, you know, stuff like that.
See, me, I wanted to host this, get it started. And then I want to be like, bring Lisa Brown with you and a couple of your friends and
that would be a blast.
Put all 4 of you guys and then pull myself out of it to let this thing evolve. Because it isn't just about Glenn. I just know how to podcast. You know what I mean?
I don't think we should record those, though.
Well, that's the thing. I could say all kinds of crazy stuff that if all our kids saw this, whoa, you know? What, you were riding your moped with no hands, chugging beer, going down Monteberico? Okay.
The most difficult thing so far about doing this with you right now, today, is I haven't dropped the F-bomb. Once, right? And you know I have a potty mouth. and we've kept it pretty G-rated.
We did. Just this one.
We haven't even gone to PG-13 yet. This has been all G.
Yeah, it's rated G so far. We're going to see what the audience trends with. You know, Derek had cats that were trying to hop out of the bag, and he kept pushing the cats back in the bag. And I get it. Because how could Derek?
I would love for you to bring on Lisa Brown.
Okay. I'd like to have Lisa Brown and you on here, and I'd like to have a few of you guys that hung out and get different crowds. And then it's also about mixing. It's like
Mark.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'll get Mark on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have Mark host that one. And
nice.
Yeah. Well, you'll host it because you have to teach them, because now you're experienced, you're certified. You're a podcaster. Woohoo! Lisa, it has been very fun. Now,
I love talking with you, Lenny. I really do. Yeah.
I'm just stopping this a little shorter day because it will be forever to upload a video this long. It's just
I understand.
YouTube. And I love it. And I would go for longer. I've done 3-hour podcasts. I'll still talk to you. But you guys, you know, say hi to Lisa. Thanks for
All right.
watching. You might be next, guys, and welcome to Cougar Land.